When I was a suburban prepper, hello, my friends, this is the art of prepping. When I was young, I was raised on a small farm, and then I went to live in the dorms for college. And so it was kind of like my first more urban experience, if you will, of urban living. And eventually I lived in an apartment in a downtown area of a large city, quite large, in fact. And so I guess technically I was maybe like an urbanite, which kind of sounds a little odd for me, but I was an urbanite for a few years. And then I got out of grad school and, got into the working career and field that I was in, study for. And so I got a good job. And then I basically kind of worked myself into buying a house in the suburban area in this city. It was a really nice subdivision, and I was there for a number of years. And that's when I was really starting to really get into prepping more so, more outwardly. And so I was able to meet like-minded people. And I noticed though that at the same time though there was like a lot of things that I had conflict with living in a suburban area. It was everything from not having enough space to too much noise and not enough privacy and things like that. And so let's go ahead and go in that list now. Um, there's 5 points. Let's go ahead and start with that first one, privacy. The privacy wasn't really there. I'd have school kids running through my yard, school buses making noises, ambulances, neighbors banging on my door wanting to know if I want to hang out. There was just a lot going on. Just a lot of movement, a lot of people moving around constantly, and big city life is not for me. And so I needed a lot more privacy. And so that's one of the reasons why I moved to where I moved. And the next would be the cost of living. Just the tax burden living in a larger city was actually unreal. Especially when I look back, I can't believe how much it was. And this is years ago. It was horrendous. What I pay now is almost nothing. It is so ridiculous. It's about 1/8 of the cost, but I have about 80 times more square footage. And it's quite shocking, actually, when you think about it. So yeah, the cost of living where I live is it is tremendously lower, just from a tax standpoint and from multiple other standpoints, with the exception of food. Food is a little high. That's the only thing that I really see, but gasoline and other things are actually quite a bit cheaper. In fact, my gas is typically anywhere from 20 to 40 cents cheaper a gallon than the city that I used to live in. So that's pretty wild. Um, the next point would be the freedoms you enjoy. There's less laws where I live currently, more freedom to do things on your own property. For example, when I used to live in the subdivision, you couldn't go and do target practice in your backyard. You would be arrested. Where I live now, if you don't do target practice in your backyard, you're considered kind of strange. So it's like complete contrast. And I really like that. I like being able to basically to do what you want to do within reason on your property, as long as it doesn't endanger anyone. So a lot more freedom living rural. Now, the next is logistics. Yes, this is probably the biggest con of living rural because it takes a lot longer to get anywhere. You will spend more money in gas, even though the gas is typically much cheaper where I live than where I used to live. You still burn up a lot more gas trying to get to places because for me, it's usually like 45 minutes to 2 hours to get to where I like to go. And so it's kind of that's a little frustrating. But for me, though, I've noticed, though, that I can just make my plans and stick with them. And so when I go out, I hit 4 or 5 places and get those done. And so I don't make a lot of trips. For example, when I go get groceries, I try to get as much as possible, as much food that will last before it will go bad. And so I know that, like for me, I get so many pounds of apples when I go out, but I would get more if it actually wouldn't go bad. But there's a point that you can only eat so many apples a day. I mean, there's days that I eat 3 or 4 apples, and for me, a 5 pound bag is about all that I can buy. before they start going bad, before I can eat them all. So that's just an example of logistics. Logistics, though, it can also be kind of bad where I live in terms of if I had to ever call an ambulance. I monitor the different types of bans for public safety where I live, with the sheriff and the local the ambulance, which is all volunteer pretty much, and I monitor these groups. And these groups, because they're basically in a rural environment, the response time is horrendous. It's 10 to 15 minutes to get an ambulance. If they're running code 3, which that means lights and sirens, you'll probably die. If you're having a heart attack or stroke, you probably won't make it out where I live. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but a lot of people don't. And that's a problem. Law enforcement takes an average of 25 to 35 minutes, depending on the time of day. At night, they're like where I live, the local law enforcement is not available. Like there is no police, and so literally you have to call over to the next city, which is like about 45 minutes away, um, to call their sheriff, and they'll try to help you. But once again, good luck. I mean, you'll probably be having a lot of things that you would have to deal with yourself before they could ever even intervene. So there's some of those cons, but um, in terms of logistics, though, it's workable if you can plan ahead. Infrastructures. The last point here, like where I live, there is no city water. There is no natural gas pipe through the street or through the neighborhoods. There's none of that. We don't have like sidewalks. We don't have any of this. We're lucky to have phone lines and electricity. That's doing good. So and that for me is fine. I don't have any problems. I don't go without. So I think if we just be realistic and say, what do you need? I think we can work around this. This is just some ideas and thoughts that I've had about this topic. Hopefully this was interesting. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.